We are live. It's another Thursday, live from Campaign HQ with Carroll for Council, District 3 2020 races. This is amazing. We're in an amazing time. We're in an amazing transformative opportunity to get some of the wins that organizers have been fighting for years. And today is a day where we're going to talk about some really big topics. I don't know if anyone watched the debates. I actually only caught a few minutes of it. But there are some wild happenings in the United States of America right now. A lot of it is around policing and public safety. So we're going to hear from experts in the city of Oakland that are on the front edge and the cutting edge of what defund police actually means. What does it mean to divest? What does it mean to actually abolish policing? All of the questions that often come up when you hear this conversation. We're going to hear from some of the country's leading experts. James Burch of the Anti-Police Terror Project is going to join us a little later and talk about some of the policy that's coming down from the state that they're leading, as well as the history of defund locally in the city of Oakland. One of the challenges that really came up for me from the debates is when the current president said around white supremacists to stand down and stand by, or step back and stand by, whatever the coded language, which wasn't so coded, to say that white supremacists get ready is really concerning, particularly because they're so in league with our law enforcement, right? All over the country, white supremacists get to be taken alive for violent activity, but people in the midst of mental health crises are killed. We've got to talk about the racial disparities, the broad sweeping powers of attorney generals and district attorneys. There's so much to discuss, but the most important critical thing is that we're paying attention and that we're organizing to create a different reality. So without further ado, I'm going to ask for our special guest of this evening to come on, James Burch of the Anti-Police Terror Project and Justice Teams. Thank you, James, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's always good to see your face.
So, James, the Anti-Police Terror Project has been on the cutting edge of defund OPD, and it's something that was happening even before APTP came to the Refund Oakland Community and Labor Coalition. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of defund and where it came from and what does it actually mean?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking that question. I've been hearing a lot of talk around town in revisionist history when it comes to what defund is all about. So I'm glad to be able to set it straight. As you mentioned, the Defund OPD campaign's been around since, I believe it was 2016 was the first year that we were officially in business. And since then, it's been our goal to defund the Oakland Police Department by 50%. That's always been the stated objective. And the thing about Defund OPD is we've never been asking for defund in a vacuum, right? It's not just that we don't like cops, right? It's that cops don't keep us safe. And we know the things that do keep us safe, and they're not being invested in, right? We're not investing in housing, in mental health services, in youth services, in education, in infrastructure, in public transportation, in healthcare. We're not investing in the types of things that we know keep us safe. And when I say we know, I mean that the data supports it overwhelmingly, right?
Wait a minute, James, I got to ask you, there's data that currently exists about what keeps us safe? That can't be true because there's not been a task force yet.
There's data on data on data. I will, we have, we've been doing this, as I've said, for years now. And I think it's been really heartening to see researchers pick up over the last several years specifically the concept of defund and start looking at municipal police budgets across the country. And so just to stop on that for a second, it's defund is so essential and was chosen for our campaign because the police budgets in cities across the country are unsustainable. they're unsustainable by any means. And that means that 10 years from now, if we continue at the current rate, we will have no social services. We won't be able to afford them. And not
Hmm.
only that, the current deficits that we're running will not be paid for. I'm
Right.
sure you know, Carol, about the medical pension deficit that we're running here in the city of Oakland, and how
Yes.
much money we need to be putting in per year, tens of millions of dollars, to be able to. I think 40 million was the last I saw quoted from when Sabrina was city administrator. I think this was maybe, I'm I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but it's a large sum of money, and we're only putting in a fraction of that. I think it was 15 million we decided to put in last budget cycle, right? And so just to zoom out for everyone, we owe hundreds of millions of dollars. We're running a very large deficit in the city of Oakland when it comes to our medical pensions for retired Oakland workers. And we need to pay into that deficit in order to make sure that we can continue to pay for medical care for retirees, as we've promised as the city of Oakland. And to do that, we need to pay a lot of money.
Right.
And it's been known by everyone in the city of Oakland, including the city administrator. She's on record saying that we need to make drastic changes when it comes to our budgeting, even to be able to maintain the status quo when it comes to our budget. And we're not doing that.
Right.
And so, and the obvious place where that money needs to come from, because everywhere else has been gutted, is the police department.
Right.
Right. And we're not doing that. And instead, we just gave them a new 5-year contract that was just passed last year. Right. And so, going back to where we started, going back to the fact that we've been doing defund since 2016, we have not received substantial. I'll say it another way. I have not had a single conversation with Lynette McElhaney, your opponent, about Defund OPD in the entire time I've been working on the campaign. The only time I have seen her and interacted with her in the context of defund is during public comment at Oakland City Council meetings, right? And so while Lynette has known, not only because we've been saying it, we activists have been shouting it, but because her city administrator has said very clearly that they need to change their tune as the city of Oakland and pay into this debt, that drastic changes need to be made to the city of Oakland's budget. This is on record. She knows that. We know that. And instead, she was party to the signing of the new police contract behind closed doors. We weren't privy to. Obviously, if we're Defund OPD, we would have pushed back. I think it was a 12.5% increase, but I haven't looked at those numbers in a minute. Lynette signed on to that, right? And so it's frustrating to hear Lynette saying now, Councilmember McElhaney, excuse me, that she has been a part of the defund movement, or she's even been receptive to the reality of the city of Oakland, which is that we need to defund the police, or we're going to, be insolvent. Like we might be, we like a bankruptcy is a term that's mentioned over and over again. And so
Right.
when that reality has been augmented by the COVID crisis and the unemployment and small businesses going under, we're in even more dire situation. And it's even more urgent that we defund the police, right? And so I say all that just because it's really important, one, to have context, and that defund isn't just a philosophical debate, right, about what we need to be doing with our public safety dollars. Defund is a necessity for cities across the country if they want to stay afloat in the current economic crisis. And this has been known in Oakland. This has been known in cities across the country, and city councilors are doing nothing about it. And Councilmember McElhaney is among those people.
Thank you for that clarity, James. I do want to go back to something that you said, because you raised two parties, two different camps that have raised the need to do something about the police budget. You said activists as well as the city administrator. And one of the things that I'm hearing when I'm in these forums is that now that it's more than just a few activists yelling, and that it's the general population that wants to defund, now we can do something. So what would you say to that? Now that it's more than just loud activists who are trying to speak for the entire community.
I'd bring your work, Carroll, into the conversation as the lead at ACE and part of the Refund Oakland coalition. It hasn't just been loud activists this entire time. There have been a coalition of organizations and labor groups that have been underfunded, had their contracts cut, had to renegotiate, and never got their promises. There are countless, and then there are advocates for clean air. Or preventing all of the environmental injustices that occur across the city of Oakland, right? And so there are a wide range of organizations that comprise Refund Oakland because there are a wide range of programs and worker groups that aren't getting the money that they need to do the job that they're trying to do. And so it's strange to hear you. It's not strange. I know what game is being played, right? And I know why they're saying now what they're saying, but that's just never been the case. That's the best thing about a defund movement, right? Is you unite the people under our current reality,
Right.
which there is a solution. There's a solution to this. There's $150 million waiting to be reinvested into the city of Oakland if we cut the police budget in half. And imagine how many organizations we can serve. Imagine how many labor groups we can serve, right? We can finally make labor whole from the cuts that they took during the last recession, right? Oakland Police Department was made whole within a year or two, right?
Right.
And other labor groups are still, other worker organizations are still suffering. And so, sorry.
No. I appreciate you for setting the record straight. And I think that's really critical because right now, organizations that actually keep us safe, like our fire department, is going with crumbling infrastructure, with old vehicles that they can't properly use, and with stations that are in dire need of repair so that they can actually save lives because they don't have the funding that they need to operate fire stations properly. So it's not just, it's not just the people who are cleaning our parks. It's the people who are actually pulling people from burning buildings. And that is so critical in fire season that we have fully functional, like fire folks who can come in and do what they need to do. And that's just one organization that are funded by our tax dollars that are not properly funded to do the work, to take care of our residents. So thank you. I appreciate you setting the record straight. So please continue if I interrupted you.
No, that's really the long and short of it, Carol, is that we've received consistent. I mean, the record is online. We have, I think up on the APTP Facebook page, we have a video from a city council meeting that we shut down because they were trying to, at the 11th hour, like the council always does, they were trying to negotiate a deal that left a lot of groups out in the cold, left a lot of groups with no funding. And I'm talking like vocational schools, programs for legal aid programs.
Right.
There is a rich tapestry of organizations that kind of do all the work that the state should be doing in the city of Oakland to try to just keep everyone alive and together. And it's a tremendous undertaking. And I know so many people who sacrifice their own health and well-being to try to give into these organizations because they're underfunded and underserved. Right. And they just know how many people need the services and they just can't go home knowing that there are people left behind. Yeah. Right. And so it's and this has been the case, right, the entire time that Defund has been running. And so while the situation is dire right now, this storyline has remained constant since Defund started in 2016. And I know what side you've been on, Carol. Because, and again, y'all can see it in the videos, and you can see where Council Member McElhaney is in those videos and what position she takes. I think it was in one video there were several hundred public comments that took, 7.5 hours, and we tallied them up. And I think it was, all but one or two were in favor of the budget that you and I and the community were pushing. And that's not the budget that Councilmember McElhaney voted on.
No, I think that's critical to say. And, it was made very clear in our forum with the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club, where the incumbent actually said, I'm proud of the vote that I took in this budget cycle, and that I've been on the prevailing side of every budget that's passed over the last few years. And that's disheartening to me, because those are the budgets that left job training programs on the chopping block, our city workers on the chopping block, our departments that are understaffed. We have an understaffed housing department in the city of Oakland in a housing crisis. And this was before COVID. So yes, we do advocate for change, and we are loud. It's because when we talk and when we have meetings, we're disregarded or dismissed or condescended to, and we're left with no other option and then we go to city council meetings, right? And we stay in there for hours and we testify and we tell our stories, and people pour out their lives and nothing changes. So yeah, sometimes we get a little loud to try to be heard, because when we engage the processes that we're given, things continue to stay the same or get worse. So I'm gonna have to go back and check out those videos again. And hopefully we won't have to do that so much if I'm council member, because I actually believe that democracy is listening to the people and finding solutions to their issues. I find it difficult to try to hold the police accountable and take their money at the same time. It's really difficult to do. So yeah, I think the record is plain if people just do their independent research for the facts. Everything is there in living color. If we have the will to do our research. And I appreciate you for even just telling the history and letting people know what has actually happened over time, because we shouldn't have to wait for another person to be killed or another person to be harassed, or for our unfunded liabilities to make the city insolvent to do something about divesting from this bloated fund. Can you talk a little bit about the unauthorized overtime, because that's another factor, right, into why the budget is so big for the police department. And can you respond to what I hear often, which is like, well, if we divest and invest in other things, then crime will be rampant. And who's going to respond to people who are sexually assaulted? If we don't have police, who's going to respond to violent crimes if things are just going to get out of hand? What do you say to those?
To the first about overtime, I believe it was in 2014. There was an audit, a city audit of OPD overtime and unauthorized overtime, because they go about double what they're authorized every year, and double means going from about 15 million to about 30 million. And those numbers like lose meaning because we say large numbers all the time. But again, that's $15 million that's not in their budget that the city of Oakland magics up every year. Right. And that's $15 million when they're telling groups who want $800,000 to build, support structures for the unhoused, or, $2 million to start a new program for youth, that there's no money, we can't possibly fund that. But every year we give an additional $10 to $15 million to the Oakland Police Department. And so, again, they were audited in 2014, and I believe the city council at that time committed to solving the problem. And nothing has been done since then. Nothing has been done since then. The same problem comes up every year, and anytime you bring it up to city council, they say, oh, well, it's really complicated, and we can't really solve that problem because you wouldn't understand. And we do understand. And we're ready to have the conversation about it, but they just don't want to have that conversation because that's getting into PD's business. And some council people, as you said, are unwilling to do that because when you take money from folks, it's hard to hold them accountable. And then could you remind me of the second question again?
Yeah, I hear this often. I hear, well, if we divest from the police, if we defund, then crime will run amok, and there will be no one to solve sexual assault or to stop people from just killing each other all over the streets.
Okay.
What would you say to that?
I get that question a lot too. I think the first and most important part of the answer is that police are not violent interrupters, and police don't save people from violent encounters. Police are violence responders, right? Violence happens very quickly. And then after it has happened, someone has to go respond. And so when someone says, what are you going to do about violent crime? I think that there's an assumption that police being out on the streets, even patrolling, prevents those violent crimes from happening. And that's just not true. I think it ignores the realities that the people who caused the violent crime are existing under,
That's right.
and why they engaged in the violent crime in the first place, and that whole story. And I understand that because the thing that is scary for us as human beings is the possibility of being killed when we go outside of our house. And so that's what people are afraid of. And so they're looking at the moments right before the killing and what could have been done, and they assume that cops can stop it because of the media and propaganda and all that. And so that's the first part of the conversation, is getting away from the assumption that police prevent violent crime or interrupt violent crime. And then we can go into a whole nother conversation about what, police failure to solve violent crime, but I usually don't like to go there.
Yeah.
Because that's a long conversation in itself. But again, if we look at what OPD actually does, and what they actually spend their time doing, I'm on my computer pulling up a infographic. I can't find it, but the bottom line is they spend a large percentage of their time doing things that we as a society, we would agree that we don't need them to do, right? Things like responding to mental health calls, or evicting people from unhoused encampments, or responding to non-medical emergencies, or responding to vehicle accidents, or a whole number of things that takes up a large amount of police time, right? When we look at what police spend their time doing, it's about 4 to 6% of the time they spend responding to violent crime, right?
Right.
And so probably, and so we can talk about what percent of the budget that would be. And so when we're talking about this first phase, when we're talking about defunding the police now, and what would happen first in our attempt to dismantle this system of policing, it's starting with the things that we've all agreed that we don't want police to do. That's the beauty of the Defund OPD campaign. Is even folks who aren't down like me would agree that police responding to mental health crises has been a mistake,
right,
in this country. It's caused countless deaths, and we don't want people to do that anymore. And we've seen that shift over the last 5 years. The public consciousness has shifted on that very issue. And so, okay, so let's have the police stop responding to the 20% of service calls, or whatever the number actually is, that is mental health incidents, right? And then let's see, what percentage of their budget is that, right? And if we start chipping away at things, we're not talking about dismantling the entire police department tomorrow, and everyone living without having to undergo such a dramatic shift. What we're talking about is doing what we think the majority of Oaklanders would agree upon. And we think that everyone would be shocked when they realize how much money goes into things we all agree that cops shouldn't be doing.
Thank you for sharing that, James. And we talked about how long are we going to do this show. We are so far over time. I do want to ask one question that I'm seeing from Melissa. She's asking, what sort of mental health crisis response programs would you propose as alternatives to investing in police?
For sure. I think that there's two main components to that conversation, right? If we're talking about crisis response, APTP has mental health first, both here in Oakland and launched in Sacramento in January. These are two programs that were started to provide response to people who are in mental health crisis without law enforcement involved, right? Those programs are volunteer based and only run on the weekends at this point, because we understand that's the time of greatest need. But at this point, we can't. We don't have enough person power to run 24/7. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the Crisis Act, AB 2054, a bill that we ran at the state level that would provide substantial grants to organizations that are doing this type of work, that are doing crisis intervention work without integration with law enforcement, to serve all of those communities who don't feel safe with law enforcement around at any point during the engagement. And so that bill passed at the House, at the state House. It passed at the state legislature, and Governor Newsom vetoed it. And he vetoed it because he wanted to put this bill in the what is called the Bureau of Sentencing and Community Corrections, which is essentially a law enforcement department, because his staff felt that people who were undergoing mental health crises were related to criminality in a way that meant that law enforcement should be in control of this program. And so that's what Governor Newsom said, and that's what he did. And if he hadn't done that, if he had chosen to sign the bill, we would have been on the path to getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to people who are already doing this work across the state of California to prevent the deaths of people like Stephen Taylor, who was killed in a Walmart in San Leandro, and Miles Hall, who was killed running to his home in Walnut Creek, and Kayla Moore, who was killed in her home in Berkeley, and countless others who were killed across the state and country. And so that's what I did propose, and Newsom vetoed it. And people could die because of that decision. And so I just want to ground that question in a very real reality, is that we're working on these things as hard and as fast as possible. And sometimes it is elected officials that stand in our way.
Right.
And that's why I'm right here, right now with you, Carroll, because not only do you not stand in our way, you are a champion. I forget who I was talking to recently, but they said, maybe once in a lifetime, you get to work with a champion as an elected official, because they're so rare. And that's why I'm fighting like hell for you, because we need you right now.
James Burch, do not make me cry on my show right now. Don't do that.
I love
that
you,
means a lot to me. And I think you're right. I think we don't have another choice but to fight like hell for our lives, because that's what's at stake right now. And you said many may die. I think it's almost a foregone reality that will happen if law enforcement continues to be sent to calls for mental health responses. We don't need any more data to know that's what's happening. And especially with this very prevalent rise in white supremacy and white supremacists working in tandem and being actual parts of these law enforcement agencies, then we know what's happening. We know what will happen. And we have to do everything in our power to stop it, even if that means getting neoliberal elected officials out of the offices where they sit. I constantly have been saying this. I've got to call Nina Turner, because I got this from her. She said, only everything that we love is on the line. Only everything that we love. So what are we willing to do? James Burch, I appreciate your time with us this evening. I could talk to you for hours. I know you put in all your blood, sweat, and tears into changing our reality and making our justice system actually just. And that means reconfiguring everything about it. I love you for what you do and who you are and what you give to our movement. And I look forward to talking to you more about this subject over the next few days, and actually making you a part of this administration once we win.
Uh-oh. Don't tell Kat.
I won't tell her.
Much love, Carroll.
All right, really love you. Talk to you later.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. As you all can see, James knows his stuff. We didn't even get to scratch the surface on this conversation. It is, it's very simple, but complicated. It's very simple because we know what needs to happen, but it's complicated because there are so many obstructions to us protecting people's lives. And that's because it has benefit or value to continue the systems as we see them, as they exist, just as they are. But there are so many of us who are saying no, that enough is enough. And that's part of what this campaign is about. We need to divest so that we can invest in the things that truly keep us safe. I'm going to hear from someone who's actually doing the work of making sure the people who agree with our message are out canvassing and talking to people about our platform for transformative justice. We have Katie on the line with us. Katie T, what you got for us today?
What's going on, Carroll? There's like no warning when you're just brought on to the show. It's just like, bam.
Bam.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite something. Great. Always great to hear from James.
Yes.
Yeah. He knows
always.
what's up. Yeah. Always. He got me choked up when he was talking about how the once in a lifetime thing with elected officials. I was like, oh God.
Stop it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, work, right? Ballots are dropping on Monday. Everyone is getting a mail-in ballot this year, right? Because of COVID, who's registered to vote. And so that means that, like we said last time I was on your show a few weeks ago, Election Day is the day after Monday. Election Day is October 6th for our purposes. So we are getting out the vote starting Saturday, October 3rd. Getting out the vote starting October 3rd through November 3rd, 1 month. And we need folks to do a few things to help us get out the vote. One is door knocking, like you mentioned. And thank you, live stream folks, for putting up the link. carroll5.org/knock is where you can sign up to door knock. Air quality is a thing.
Yeah.
And so we are going to cancel shifts and encourage folks to not go out if the air quality is 150 or above. But if it's below, we are still going to move forward with the shifts. And, you know, something I was thinking about today is I was like, you know, what are we, those of us who can, like, what are we willing to risk so that folks who are currently living out in this shit, like, don't have to anymore. Right. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so I really hope folks sign up to door knock. We are having shifts every day of the week. We're having multiple shifts throughout the day next week, Monday through Thursday. Those are really, really important days for us to be reaching as many voters as possible as folks start getting their ballots, so that people know how ranked choice voting works. They know to rank Carroll number 1. And so those are going to be really important days for us. So please sign up to door knock, tell your friends, show up. This Saturday, also October 3rd, our launch of our Get Out the Vote efforts, we're going to be at Defund Park in West Oakland all day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you can't sign up for a shift, you're like, none of these times work for me, or you have some extra time to give on Saturday, come through. We'll get you set up with everything you need to hit those doors. Just bring a charged phone, your smartphone. That's the only thing you need to knock on doors. The other thing we have going on is phone banking, right? We are calling as many voters as we can. There's that beautiful link, carroll5.org/call. Amazing how that works. We're phone banking every single day. We are calling every voter who we possibly can, as well as knocking on their door, you know, trying to reach people every possible way. So please sign up to phone bank. We are having extra shifts next week as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
No, that's great, Katie. No, that's everything. People are so excited about. Oh, this is a challenging position for me to be in, because people are excited about me, you know, saying things like it's once in a lifetime, but it really is the energy that we all collectively bring to this. I am honored to be a vessel for this movement in this moment. So people are excited about me because they're excited about what they're able to contribute, what they're able to do, and what we can collectively create. And I'm excited too. I think we are going to win. And I think once we do, then the work starts about transforming this city, one district at a time, And I think that will just emanate throughout the state and throughout the country. So yes, be excited about what's to come and what we can build together. I'm excited. I'm excited. So
Hell yeah, me
Katie,
too.
I appreciate you throwing down, having all the things organized for our volunteers to do.
Hell yeah.
And for just putting in so much time and energy into this movement campaign. This is amazing. And it's this type of infrastructure, because we're killing it. We're killing it is why we're going to win.
On. Yeah.
For real. We have an amazing
seriously.
team. Katie is just one of many. Katie, how many volunteers do we have right now? How many people have signed up to volunteer?
Oh, I lost track at 500. I think like over 500. That's what I can tell you. Over 500.
Just stop counting.
I was like, wow.
And it shows. I'm seeing banners at people's houses. People are like, get lawn signs. People think that I'm mailing stuff all the time. It's not me. We're going to do another show about how independent expenditures work. There's a lot of confusion about that. But that's okay. That's for another show. But the point is that this is a movement. It is not about just one individual. It is about the hundreds, if not thousands of people who are tuned in and paying attention right now, who want to see something different, who really love our community and want to see that we all can thrive.
That's right.
And that's what it's about. It's just that simple.
That's right.
There's a bunch of links in the bottom there about making sure that you're registered to vote. All of that information is on our website. Katie, if you don't have anything else, then I'm going to talk to you later. There's a couple things we need to talk about GOTV.
Yeah, there are.
But
there is something else actually.
Okay.
I forgot. I made a list and I forgot one of the things on my list.
What's
what
the thing?
Heck? Ballot delivery. Ballot delivery.
So important.
Yeah, so important. So to help folks be able to cast their vote, because the system that's in place is set up to make it as hard as possible for folks to vote. Currently, there are 2 ballot drop boxes in the entire district, in all of District 3. And so that means that folks have to travel pretty far to drop off their ballot or put it in USPS's hands, which, is being systematically underfunded. So what we're doing is we're trying to make it more accessible for folks to vote. We're going to be having a crew of folks who are going to go out for anyone who wants support, needs support with their ballot. We're going to be out there supporting them with delivering their ballot to the nearest drop box. Every voter has the right to get help casting their ballot. And so we're going to help folks exercise that right as it comes up and deliver those ballots. So that is a thing we're going to be doing at the doors for everyone to know. They can contact the campaign if they're a supporter, if they need help with their ballot. We've got that infrastructure in place starting next week throughout the month of October.
That is so critical, Katie. I just want to reiterate what Katie just said. If you need help, if you're not able to get your ballot to one of the 2 drop boxes that the county has in the district, then we will come to you and pick it up and make sure that you can drop off your ballot so that your vote actually counts. And it's going to be so critical, not just for the federal, but all of the down ballot races are important. And we need our progressive voices to be heard on issues that are impacting us in so many different areas. So next Thursday on our show, Tanya Love will be on with myself to talk about all the different propositions, all the different races from the federal to the local level, so that people can understand. We're not telling people how to vote, but we are telling people what the propositions are. And then we will also help to make sure that you can get your ballot to the drop boxes so that your vote counts. Katie, I appreciate you. I thank you. And that's a wrap.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you too, Carol.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so there's a text number right there. Text 520-255-5350 for help with your ballot. And once again, tune in next Thursday where we're actually going through all of the different ballot initiatives, all of the different races, so that you can get an understanding of what's in front of you. It matters. It matters. If it didn't, there wouldn't be such a push to suppress the vote and make sure that your voices are not heard. So join us next Thursday. Tune in. We're not going to stop this conversation about defund and what divestment actually means and what it could bring to our city. So it's going to be an ongoing conversation. If you want to be a part of it, join the campaign, log in to volunteer, go to the website, carrollfife.org to learn more and get plugged in. And until then, We'll see you next Thursday.